Okay, today we are going to discuss about the operation theatre. Operation theatre comes under the section 2 of the hospital operation management. It's a very important part of the hospital, and in this topic we would be discussing about the planning consideration, the standard operating procedures of the operations theatre. So how to manage the operation theatre. We'll see about the introduction to the operation theatre. OT suite is a complex workshop and it's the most important facility of the surgical department. Nowadays, generally only those hospitals where we have and like a sort of a clinic where it is a polyclinic, there we don't need an operation theatre. But even if we are building a nursing home, we need to have an operation theatre. So actually OT suite is actually a very complex workshop and it's a very important facility if you have to conduct any sort of surgery in your hospital. So even if it is the hospital is 25 to 30 bedded nursing home, but if they need to conduct a surgery very frequently or for the cesarean or the tubal ligation, they need to have one operation theatre. So it's very important to discuss about this when we are discussing about the hospital operation management. It's also important to determine the number of operation theatre. So how many OT should be needed, because operation theatre, to build up a operation theatre, it's very costly. That's what the third point is. It's very expensive to build and equip. It's not only to build the operation theatre, and even the equipments, whatever equipments we are using in an operation theatre are also very costly. So it's very important to determine how many operation theatres should a hospital have, because OT utilization is very important criteria for the hospital, because those hospital who are utilizing OT in a proper way or in a substantial manner, then it becomes a profit making center for the hospital. In fact, major of the revenue comes from the surgery department, and for the surgery department, OT department is very important. So it's very important to determine how many operation theatres should we have, because operation theatre is very difficult or is very expensive to build, and the equipments needed in operation theatre are also very expensive. So financial feasibility has to be determined to has to be seen and examined to determine the number of operation theatre in an hospital. Now, what is operation theatre suite? So we have been discussing that OT suite is very complex. So what is an OT suite? What is the difference between an operation theatre and operation theatre suite? So basically, when we group the operating rooms, that is called as surgical suite or OT suite. So we suppose only one OT is there, then it is called as an operation theatre. But if we have 2 or 3 OTs and that all 3 OTs are grouped together in one floor, then it is called as operation theatre suite or the surgical suite. Now, why we need to have an operation theatre suite? Whether we should have all the OT departments on one surgical floor and near to each other, or whether it should be on the different floors. That we would be discussing again in the later part of this lecture. But now we'll be discussing what are these advantages of having the grouped OT or of having a operation theatre suite. So first advantage is it improves optimization of facilities and economy of manpower. So as we have been discussing that operation theatre is very expensive to build and equip. And the other thing is the people who are working in an operation theatre, their salary is also very high. So it's very essential that we should improve the more and more productivity should be taken out from the operation theatre. So if we have 2 or 3 operation theatre together on one floor, we need to hire a less number of people, so that improves the productivity of the person. So that's why it improves the optimization of facilities and economy of manpower. The standard of air hygiene established for OT demands a complicated and expensive ventilation system. So basically, for OT, there has been some standards applied for the air hygiene, because again OT falls in those areas where there are a lot of chances of getting a nosocomial infection. So the standards has been dropped out for the air hygiene. So for this, we need to have a very smart and expensive ventilation system in an OT department, which is very expensive, and it is not only expensive, it is also difficult to provide at different number of points around the hospital. So if we need to provide this a ventilation system on first floor and again on the third floor, we need to do the planning consideration again for the first floor and for the fourth floor. So it will increase the cost not only in terms of building the operation theater, but also we will have to have the more number of people. You will need to take a more number of equipments, like if we are planning an OT for three different floors, we need to have a anesthesia machine in each OT. We will have to take a three anesthesia machine. But suppose if it is that we have a 3 OT at one suit, we can also manage for a timing with a 2 anesthesia machine till the OT productivity increases. So that is how it is going to make a difference. That are the advantages of operation theater suit. That is where it is optimizing, that is improving the more productivity out of the equipments, out of the manpower. It is reducing the cost by by repetition of creating and planning, or the infrastructure system facilities to create a ventilation system. So it is obvious that optimum utilization of operating rooms is possible if they are not reserved rigidly for use by particular department or surgeon as a rule. There are generally major hospitals, where you might have heard this is an IOPD, this is an IOT, this is an ENT-OT. It's very controversial whether the hospital should have a specialty OT or it should have a multi-specialty OT. Generally, the trend is like it should be like the hospital should have a multi-specialty OT, because if you keep the OT reserved for the specific cases, then it becomes like certain times, like if you don't have an ENT case but the other case is there, but since you have reserved the OT for the ENT case, so OT has not been utilized and the other patient for the general surgery has been kept on waiting for the surgery just because OT was already booked. So in order to have the better utilization and better outcome from the surgical department, we need to have the so it is very obvious that the better utilization of operating rooms is possible if we are not keeping a reserve for any specific particular department. It should be kept as common for any type of surgery. So that is about the operation theater suit. That is about a brief introduction of the operation theater suit and operation theater.